Welcome again to Talk to Goshiack, this time Christmas edition, because I want to share with you one topic, vulnerability. And although it sounds humble, I dare to say it's one of the most impactful factors into the modern our human lifestyle. And to be honest, I made already a vulnerability video 2 days ago or something, and I posted, and there was one friend of mine that contacted me and said, "Gosh, I love you to bits, but I have no idea what you're talking about. Vulnerability alert." So that's why I just made this decision of totally reinventing the whole topic and making it a Christmas story. So we're going to go Dickens here. I'm going to present basically the concept through the eyes of Scrooge. So let's start. So what is vulnerability in the first place? I made a small research on my own, and of course the basics for me was this incredible talk of Brené Brown on vulnerability. I cannot recommend it enough. Please check it on your own. It would be a pity if you didn't. But my definition of vulnerability would be staying authentic to oneself, facing a fear of potential rejection. So that would be a definition. So how about Mr. Scrooge? He was very far from authenticity in his feelings towards the situations he was being set in, or he was designing them himself. So he was designing situation for not to feel vulnerable. He was imposing himself on others, on his employees. Even the whole city was threatened, or at least they were really afraid of him, because they knew you cannot be vulnerable with him, and he was too closed up to be vulnerable himself. So how does it show vulnerability? It is this feeling of anticipation while expressing your need, your deep thought, and because you know you might anticipate rejection, so you feel certain anxiety, and it is when you're asking for help. When you're asking someone out and you don't know whether you're going to be welcome, when you're showing that you don't know something, when you're waiting for a very important news, this all creates the anxiety, and how you are in the situation. It is either you are vulnerable in all of the spectrum of the emotions that come with it, or you isolate yourself. So Mr. Scrooge, how was he reacting on potentially vulnerable situations? So he was, of course, avoiding them constantly by just showing that he doesn't need anybody. So if you don't need anybody, you don't need to ask anybody for help, or you don't need to think that you might not be enough on your own, because then it would first of all create certain type of anxiety that you are alone, and second of all, this moment of approaching someone with some request, that might have felt for Mr. Scrooge like a real hell. So why we don't want to experience vulnerability in the first place? Because if it's great stuff, why we don't? Simply because we don't want to be disappointed. Why we would be disappointed? It just because the moment of a vulnerability, of being in a moment when you have to admit there is also someone else that you would like in your life, creates this thought: I'm not self-sufficient, therefore I have to rely on someone. So, and whatever we need from that person, they might not give it to us. So it might not be reciprocated. So this feeling of dependency for many people is very, very tough. And obviously we've been also hurt in the past. So whenever we needed something from someone, something physical or some attention or some care, that's the same thing. And we might either be afraid of asking for not to be rejected, or we have been actually rejected in the past and we absolutely don't want to experience that anymore. That's why we cut ourselves from that feeling of vulnerability. Because this feeling that someone might not share the same feelings, or they might not reciprocate this kindness to us, we already cringed. So what is the feeling? The feeling is shame. So we anticipate the rejection, therefore we already feel ashamed. And also in the past, someone might have actually shamed us because we asked them of something that they were not willing to give. So there's either real danger of being ashamed, or feeling shame because you know that it might happen. It's this excruciating feeling that stops us from wanting to be vulnerable. And of course, Mr. Scrooge, he did many mistakes in the past. He rejected a lot of people, and he knew that these ghosts of the past, like this in phrasal speech, they are hunting him. So he will do everything not to stop and reflect. So he is the last person that would like to be vulnerable in that state. That's why if there were not for the ghosts of Christmases, he would never be faced with that, because he would do literally everything to defend himself from this potentiality of needing someone in his life again. So, but what are actual threats then from numbing yourself? Because if you are not going towards asking someone, or you're not expressing what you would express if you were true to yourself, you're actually numbing that place in yourself. So what happens? What is the consequence? And what is the threat of the long-term the tactic of that kind? Well, if you numb one part of yourself, you numb the other as well. So if you numb yourself not to experience rejection and shame, you also will be numbed to experience happiness, gratefulness, connections, because it like putting even taking painkiller or putting anesthesia on one part of the heart, it will just spread on all of it. So it makes sense that you will stop feeling, full stop. So the same happened exactly with Scrooge when he isolated himself from the close ones and from the thought of the close ones that were very dear to him in the past. He just isolated himself from joy, from life, from even relatives to date, because he knew that opening that part would mean opening also to the other hurts, other feelings that he wouldn't be willing to experience. And this is exactly what Ghosts of Christmases invited him to do. So, but for us, what does it mean that if we isolate ourselves from feeling vulnerable, it might mean that we stop disconnecting with what we really want, with the center of our drive, of the fact that we are losing a purpose, that we are losing purpose in what we do and what our life is all about. It's just we lose connection not only with others, not only with world, not only with experiences of joy, but ultimately with ourselves, feeling lost as a result. So what we can do then? Well, first of all, we might try to understand what kind of situation make us feel vulnerable. You know, is it the moment when we have to ask someone of something, admit something, to present something, many things. And for Scrooge, it was everything that was related to human emotions, to human tenderness. he didn't want to feel it at all, because that would make him feel tender and vulnerable. Second step, we might start to notice, check how do we react on the feeling of the vulnerability, whether we try to hide ourselves and jump into some experiences, or literally leave the spot, or we become defensive and try to fight a person or the situation. Remember how Scrooge was reacting to the ghosts of the past, ghosts of the present. He was very cynical, he was very defensive. Impolite would be understatement. So he was doing everything. He was trying to run away, right? He tried to reject the arguments. He was very defensive. He was trying to rationalize everything instead of feeling. He was bringing everything to the head. It was like, yeah, and then also there's all people around as well, yes, but let them die and reduce the surplus population. Yeah, that's a solution for someone that keeps his own capacity, all of the capacity, only in brain area, right? But the third step, it would be trying to bring more and more yourself into this situation of vulnerability. And this is exactly also what Ghosts of the Christmases were doing with Scrooge over the journey of the past, present, and future scenarios. And for us, what would it mean? For us, it would mean going through our own journey of self-discover, of going through some kind of healing journeys through self-reflection. Maybe we need the help of some spiritual community. Maybe we already have something that works for us, some developmental programs, or the therapy sessions. You know, the personal therapy sometimes, the therapist serves us as a ghost of our past, of our present, of our future, showing us what we don't see. And sometimes what we don't see, it's exactly as Scrooge, that we don't see the reason why we become numb. And it's the crucial point to understand that, because something that makes us numb sometimes is the self-critic or the imaginary critic. We are not enough. We don't do that right, and you're not lovable. You're not worthy of someone's trust and effort. And the moment we heal that, the moment we really believe we are all of it, we are lovable, we are powerful, we are enough, then we are also more keen to see that in others. Hence, opening up more, daring being yourself, whether someone likes it or not, but presenting, being imperfect, stating your own truth, no matter the outcome, without hurting others, of course, hopefully. But because since lack of vulnerability is due to fear of rejection, then the vulnerability has all to do with the courage. And the courage to just come into the situation and say, this is me. And of course, you may like me, you might understand me, you might want to understand me, or you mightn't. And guess what? If you're healed, you will say, that's fine, that does not define me, that does not make everyone think and feel what you do, because I have a belief that I'm enough. That's why I can go with a courage in that situation, searching for a connection, but maybe not finding it, and it is okay. And also with the Scrooge, when we look at him at the end of the journey, the moment he understood his mistakes, that he's not so perfect, he was also willing to be open to someone else's shortcomings and mistakes, and connect because of that. Because you cannot connect if you think you're better. You cannot connect if you think that everyone is crap, sorry for my French. And just the moment when you become authentic, you also let others be authentic. And that creates meaningful connection, satisfying relationship, more authenticity within yourself, because you bring all of yourself to the moment, whether someone likes it or not. And it's not like, oh, them, I do what I want. It's just like, no, fine, I respect you. I'm assertive, you're assertive. I let you be assertive towards me, but it does not define you. So thank you for your input, and thank you for this potential friendship. But if it doesn't work out, it's also fine. So I would like to add the side note to all of that, because another effect of numbing our needs of self-expression and of being yourself is this kind of tension that might result in compulsive behaviors. So if you are not connected with yourself, this reaction might lead us sometimes to addictive behaviors, whether it's emotional or chemical ones. We just need to express it somehow, you know. So it is, when we think about it, we are jumping into different type of experiences, sometimes blindly. We don't know why, when we are overworked, when we are tired, we do something, and it's maybe sometimes because we don't know. We got disconnected to what is actual need of ours, and instead we go on Facebook, instead we go and eat another cake, or we just go and find a meaningless relationship for that night, and or go to the pub and drink 15 pints. I've seen that. So for Scrooge it was workaholism. So it is everything done for a reason, because we protect ourselves from feeling potential hurt. So you see, this is the moment when we are disconnected and we are following some kind of drives. We don't know why we want it, but we do it. So, and this is, I come to my initial statement that I think that the aspect of vulnerability, it's very much connected with the lifestyle we have right now, and it's not about Christmas and consumerism. It's like it's only one phase of that lifestyle. I think we behave like this on an everyday level as well. And what I would like to invite you for that pre-Christmas reflection is, let's not be Scrooge. Is let's say, okay, I hear you saying I'm not. This is not how I behave. Fine. Do you think Scrooge thought he is a Scrooge? No, he didn't. So he thought he's the most rational person in the world. And sounds familiar? So I would like to leave you with that and wait for your comments. Thank you so much and Happy Christmas!